In this video, I am going to go over several examples illustrating how to convert imperial units of volume. Some examples will be numerical, and we're going to work through some word problems as well. So let's start with one of the numerical examples. We're converting 4 cubic yards into cubic feet. You're going to notice that the process that we're going to use here is no different than the one that we've done in Module 1 and also in Module 2 when we converted units of area. So this should be very familiar. So the first thing we do is we write our conversion fact for length. How do we relate yards and feet? We know that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. So now I'm going to write that fact underneath my question, but I want to make sure that my units are lined up. The yards line up with the yards and the feet line up with the feet. So when I do that, my fact will look like this. And I'm just going to put an arrow and say, this is for length, okay? Then I ask myself this question, how do I go from 1 to 3? And I do that by multiplying by 3, okay? Now I'm going to use the same process for my question, but instead of multiplying by 3 once, I'm going to multiply by 3 times. And the reason I do that is because I am working with volume, and volume is 3-dimensional, so I multiply 3 times. So on your calculator, what you're going to do is you're going to go 4 times 3 times 3 times 3, and that will give you the solution. And that number is 108. So the answer here is 4 cubic yards is equal to 108 cubic feet. So now what I'd like you to do is, if you feel confident enough, pause the video and try these questions on your own, and then come back to view the solutions, okay? All right, so let's work on the next question here. 72 cubic feet equals how many cubic yards? Now, if you compare this to the example right before, it's in reverse. Here we went from cubic yards to cubic feet, and here we're going from cubic feet to cubic yards. So we're going to use the same conversion fact, really. So 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. However, this time we're going to start with the feet because we want to line up the units, right? So here I'm going to have 3 feet is equal to 1 yard, right? So these two are the same and these two are the same. And then I ask myself this question, how does 3 feet become 1 yard? And the answer is I divide by 3. And that is for length. Okay, so for volume, what do? Well, I do that 3 times, right? So I divide by 3 times. And do that step by step. Okay, I'm going to show you a way where you can do it all in one step in a few minutes. But if you're going to do it this way, do the division 1 at a time. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So go 72 divided by 3. That will give you 24. Take 24 and then divide that by 3. That will give you 8. Then take 8, divide that by 3. You see how I'm dividing by 3 each time? So that's 3 times. This is the last time. So it's going to be 2.666 repeating. Normally a question will tell you what to round to. I didn't in this case, so I'm just going to round to the nearest tenth and say 2.7. So my answer here is 2.7, and I'm going to highlight that. Okay, now what if you wanted to do this in one step? How would you do it? You would go 72 divided by, in brackets, 3 times 3 times 3. And I know this sounds a bit bizarre because you're probably thinking, why are you multiplying when you said we have to divide? Yes, that is a valid point, but because we have the brackets, this division distributes to everything inside. So this becomes a division, this becomes a division, but this just allows us to do everything in one go. So try it on your calculator right now. Go 72 divided, open bracket, 3 times 3 times 3, close bracket, enter, and you will get 2.6 repeating, okay? Now, if this step is confusing and it's going to throw you off and you won't know when to put multiplication, when to put division, forget about it and just do this. This is also foolproof. It will always work for you, okay? All right, now let's do the next example. I'm going to erase this for now just to create some space. So in the next example, we are converting cubic feet to cubic inches. So just like we did before, we're going to start by writing our conversion fact, and that's that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. We're going to write it underneath by lining up the units. And we're going to determine what operation to use. And here it's going to be multiplication. Okay. Now we're going to do that 3 times because we're working with volume. Okay. So on your calculator, go 3. So we get the 3 from here. Times 12 times 12 times 12. And the answer should be 5,184. Please try this yourself as well to make sure that you know how to use your calculator for questions like this. All right, last numerical example. And this one is interesting because it's a fraction, right? When we work with imperial units, we see fractions a lot because we're looking at fractions of 16, fractions of 4 on a ruler, right? So we have 2/3 cubic yards and we want to convert it to cubic feet and then cubic inches as well. So if the question just asks you to convert from here to here, you will have to convert to cubic feet first because we don't have a known conversion between cubic yards and cubic inches. Can we find one? Absolutely, and it's not that hard. We use the same process that we did earlier when we drew the cubes, but just to make things simple and a little bit faster, we can convert to cubic feet first. All right, so let's do this question first, okay? So what's the relationship between yards and feet? We know that 1 yard is equal to 3 feet. How do we go from here to here? We multiply by 3. For volume, we're going to multiply by 3 times. Okay, so on your calculator, you're going to write 2/3 times 3 times 3 times 3. But here's where I need you to be careful. Anytime you're working with fractions on your calculator, you must put them in brackets. So when you input this into your calculator, depending on what brand you have or what model, you'll put brackets 2 divided by 3 brackets times 3 times 3 times 3. Okay, so I'm going to do that right now as well. And I get 18. Okay, so try that right now as well to make sure that you inputted this correctly into your calculator. So the answer here is 18. So 2/3 cubic yards is equal to 18 cubic feet. Okay, now we're not done. We want to find the same value, but in cubic inches. So I'm just going to erase this to make some room. And now I'm going to treat this as a different question. Okay, as if it's its own question. So what's the relationship between feet and inches? I know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. So how do I get from here to here? I multiply by 12. That means here I'm going to multiply by 12 3 times because it's volume. So 18 times 12 times 12 times 12. That's going to be a big number. So that will equal, I'm still plugging it into my calculator, 31,104 cubic inches. And that is the final solution. Okay? So I think in the next video we will go over the word problems.